I'm pleased now to introduce our keynote speaker, Evan Kleiman. An alumna of the Italian department, Evan is the acclaimed host of KCRW's Good Food, author of 6 cookbooks, and a self-described food geek. As a radio host, she's conducted over 6,000 interviews on topics that have ranged from the history of toothpicks to how to bake one of the most delicious pies you might ever taste. In fact, I happen to know that one idea for today's presentation involved pie. Didn't work out logistically, I'm sorry, but do keep your ears open for mention of pie. After becoming master of baking, pie talk is a common topic in many interviews. During the summer of 2009, Evan decided to set out on a journey to make a pie a day all summer long. This simple journey captivated pie enthusiasts in the Los Angeles area and garnered enough support to create the first annual Good Food Pie Contest. 6 years later, we can look forward to another year of innovation and creation of some of the most beloved recipes. As owner of Angeli Cafe, a Hollywood trattoria, Evan pioneered stripped-down Italian cuisine. Using simple ingredients and economical ingenuity, Angeli became a neighborhood fan favorite. For 28 years, the cafe drew people from all over Los Angeles County. Today, Evan continues to express her love for Italian food by conducting food tours of both Italy and Los Angeles. Evan has also championed efforts away from the kitchen for food policy and agroecology. As the founder of the Los Angeles Slow Food chapter, Evan helped to promote local foods and food cultures and advocate policies that promote holistic alternatives to the industrial system. As a board member of the Los Angeles Food Policy Council, she helps efforts to attain healthy, affordable, fair, and sustainable food for everyone in Southern California. This encompasses programs that assist with hunger, obesity, school gardens, farm workers' rights, and much more. Evan received a bachelor's degree in Italian literature and film and a master's of business administration from UCLA in 1976 and 1980, respectively. I'm honored and delighted that Evan has joined us today for this momentous occasion. Please join me in welcoming Evan Kleiman.
Thank you. I really did want to make pie while I was up here. There's so many metaphors for life. Thank you so much, Dean Skaberg, Professor Parodi, faculty, staff, graduates, and all the family members that are here today. And thank you for thinking that I'd be a good person to inspire people with more energy and spirit than I may have had for a couple of decades. I guess we'll find out in a few minutes if you made the right decision. So graduates, I may not be Kanye or Natalie Portman or Robert De Niro or any of the other celebrities giving these speeches this year, but I am a really good example of how your life can develop into something completely different than what you initially imagined, and how surprisingly good that can turn out to be. Also, I had the same atypical desire as you did to fall into the rabbit hole of language and cultural studies. So huge congratulations on making the best decision of your life so far, majoring in the humanities. I've always thought that the whole point of education at this level, at the university, was to learn how to enjoy learning, because it's the only constant in a well-lived life. To engage that impulse to love learning, it's everything. And in this particular time and place, you're going to need it through your whole life. That learning cannot stop at graduation. I was part of a young generation that rebelled. Oh, how we rebelled. And yet, as we started to join the workforce, I think many of us assumed that when we became adults, we would have a fruitful, rewarding life if we picked the safest, most predictable course. We were confident that if we entered onto that well-trod path before us, we could be fairly certain of what was waiting for us as we moved from stop to stop on whatever singular road that we chose. I couldn't do it. I couldn't face the everyday and the same indoor office option, even though it was a safe one. I already learned through cooking my way through college that I could earn a living and have a, shall we say, more flexible lifestyle. So when I graduated my degree in Italian literature and film, I was panicked when I thought I had to enter a more sequestered workplace than the kitchen to earn a living. So what did I do? I did what any fearful person would do. I continued to build on what I'd been doing all through college in the kitchen. I cooked. I cooked for the caterer who had underwritten my undergrad education by paying me a wage, and I started to cater on my own. That decision was made out of fear of throwing myself into an unfamiliar world that I perceived to be limiting. You're entering a world where the possibility of a single predictable career track that lasts a lifetime is far less likely, unless you have the belief and commitment to enter and win the intellectual and emotional lottery. If you have a passion or an obsession or the culture of that language you've been studying, or who knows, maybe you're secretly a crafty Icelandic woodworker. The sense of internal resolve and insatiable love for your subject, it may surprise you to know that that's actually the easy path because you have no choice. You're driven, and you'll get dragged over rocks, but you'll also get dragged through quenching streams as you follow that particular bliss. You'll continue to learn, you'll create work opportunities that are varied and will lead to more opportunity. Maybe you'll earn well, maybe you won't. But the deepest satisfaction from your work will fill in financial gaps and fill you with inspiration. I just happen to be incredibly lucky that the fear that caused me not to let go of the kitchen, even as I came back to UCLA for my graduate degree at the Graduate School of Management, what's now the Anderson School, I'm lucky that it worked out. Balancing those two seemingly unrelated worlds turned out to be a charmed decision for me. And not just because with an MBA in hand, I surrendered to the seductions of good food, using my hands to make it, but because I continued to read about and feed my passion, food, while at the same time learning about spreadsheets and administration, the best business practices at school, which maybe I didn't put into practice so well. But now I embraced it. Before the internet, being a food nerd was an extremely solitary place to be. I felt like I was all alone, but it was mine. It was my occupation. And in all the moments that I wasn't working for pay, I was working for free. I was traveling and reading, continuing to learn about food industries, culinary careers, and starting to write. I took my gap year between high school and college, which is when I became besotted with the Italian language and culture, and of course the food, always the food. So as I started my formal Italian education here as an undergraduate, I also continued that lifelong process of learning through travel. Despite a nearly paralyzing shyness, yes, really, those initial interactions with those that I met in Italy and throughout Europe, teachers, chefs, home cooks, and just folks from a different world than mine, it was now richer, deeper, because of my newfound language facility. I discovered that in some ways I felt more like myself and more at home half a world away than I did here in Los Angeles. Life got bigger, more complex, certainly more interesting and much tastier on all levels. Every time I returned home from another trip, I had more to offer, intellectually and emotionally. There were deeper reserves on which I could rely, and man, could I cook. When I was offered the job to host Good Food at KCRW, I'd already owned, managed, and cooked in my restaurant for 15 years. I thought I'd finally achieved that goal of meaningful work and a career, like those friends of mine who were physicians and attorneys. I had one of the longest running restaurants in LA, a wonderful kitchen family, devoted and loyal customers, a really incredible community of people. Several cookbooks published, things were comfortable, things were predictable. It was 23 years after I graduated from this marvelous institution. I was given 15 minutes to say yes or no to the KCRW position. And for a second, I thought, I shouldn't do it. I'm not trained for the world of media or broadcasting. My UCLA degrees weren't in communication studies. This wasn't my intended career path plan. Despite a total fear of the unknown, I said yes, and I was lucky enough to discover my own bliss. I always knew deep down that despite the success and the rewards of my restaurant life, it wasn't the perfect fit for me. But I never could have imagined that all those years of food nerdery, of reading and talking to people about arcane food subjects, about food politics that were totally off the news radar at that time, so much thinking about food as art, food as solace, food as community building, that all of that would give me a deep base of focused learning, insight, and expertise. All of which coalesced and aligned for me to be able to accept that position in the work at KCRW and thrive doing it. Who could have known that all along it was this insatiable intellectual curiosity about people, the same drive that pushed me to become an Italian major, and how were revealed through food that would deliver me to this perfect fit. A new career track, expanded visions, and newly sparked passions. If you've discovered a niche here in academia during these 4 years and are making the commitment to stay for further education, that's fantastic. But I hope you also explore all the potential learning sources available to you outside of these walls. If you decided that your formal education is now complete, or you will take a respite from the formal education for now, that's equally valid. Because the truth is that your real education begins when you walk off this campus and into the next stage of your life. I read an article by New York Times commentator Frank Bruni recently. He said, "There's only so much living and learning that takes place inside a lecture hall, a science lab, or a dormitory. Education happens across a spectrum of settings and in infinite ways, and college has no monopoly on the ingredients for professional achievement or a life well lived." Now, he was referring to the competitive, anxiety-provoking, and trend-driven arena of college applications and admissions. But to me, this sentiment has an incredibly rich meaning when applied to these moments, such as the one you're in today of transition. You'll have more moments like these, transitions from job to job, from living on your own to sharing a life with others. Maybe you'll move across the globe from time to time. It's useful when you're on the cusp of these transitions to remind yourself that a critical learning curve is about to happen. Throw yourself into it despite the fear. Counsel your doubts, but dispel that fear. Discomfort is natural. It rips away complacency, and it generates activism. Maybe you're cautious or you're anxious because the world in which you're coming of age is quite different than the one that nurtured your parents. Maybe you've heard them worry or seen them experience a lack of stability or security. Of course, that's formative for you. But at the same time, I have to say, wow, how great that you're not expected to predict or have 100% assurance about what you'll be happy doing 20 years from now. How can you possibly know? You're only now paused at the first major fork in the road of your life. The biggest challenge will be for those of you who may not find total fulfillment in your work immediately. And I'm here to say that that's okay, because you know what else there is besides work? There's life. Not spending your soul on work means that you can save it for life, and you can have the luxury to draw your own picture of what that is and what it will be for you years from now. Cultivate a nimble mind when it comes to challenges. Strive to connect that which at first seems unconnectable. For example, food and academia, two things that were unimaginable when I was graduating from this institution. Trust me, you'll find work. Will it be the most meaningful, thoughtful, life-reinforcing work right out of the gate? Maybe. But even if it isn't, let balance guide you. Life is big, and work lives within it. You might overhear a single sentence said by a colleague or someone visiting your workplace that will resonate and make you think or prompt you to a wise decision. Perhaps you'll meet your life partner. Maybe a cultivated connection will spark the desire to invent, to create, or make new collaborations. You've just completed one of the most structured eras of your life, pre-K to now. It's a lot of years in those classrooms. I hope you see what's ahead of you as a wonderfully strange travel experience with plenty of opportunity for unexpected turnoffs and detours. Often those become the most rewarding, especially if you become lost from time to time, because sometimes you have to be willing to get lost to find what's most meaningful or locate a constructive new direction. I'm here to tell you that you are enough. You are whole. At the same time, you, I, and your faculty, everyone here for this celebration, each of us is a work in progress. And it's clear you made the right decision. Your university education was never meant to be a job training prescription or at all career limiting. And in particular, an education in the humanities, by its very nature, is an education of the whole person for a whole life in the whole world. And now I'm going to leave you with my love of pie for a metaphor. I spent my life cooking and writing and teaching the culture of the Italian kitchen. My father was born in Belarus. My mother's a first-generation American with parents from the Ukraine. At KCRW, I'd say that at least half my interviews today focus on immigrant and world food cultures. So it's kind of ironic that now some people know me best as a person obsessed with that most American of all foods, pie. I guess what pie is for me is a lesson that learning and growth can happen in the most unexpected ways. For me, it turns out that another chapter was hidden between two crusts. I learned that even at this time in my life, I could embrace a new discipline that previously involved only deliciousness. I learned that I could create community through craft. Last year here on this campus, 4,000 people came to the pie contest that I host every year. That's 4,000 people to eat pie. Crazy. Most of all, I learned that pie is a wisdom, not a recipe. And with life, like much of life, it's about reconciling opposites. With pie, it's tenderness and flakiness, the balance of savor, sweet, and tart. So I leave you with my sincere and heartfelt congratulations on achieving this truly momentous moment in your life. And I leave you with a wish for a delicious life and a sweetness of unexpected complexity.